It may have been one of the most decisive election outcomes in recent history, but the count was continuing today in a number of exceptionally tightly contested seats, as was the cleaning up operation among political parties who lost their leaders.
I am just so thrilled to have had the support of my colleagues to be the leader of the Australian Greens.
The Greens' ambitions of building on their significant House of Representatives beachhead at the 2022 election were not only dashed at this year's poll, but the beachhead was eroded to just one seat. The Greens have returned to being primarily a party of the Senate, albeit one with an even larger hold on the balance of power.
We need strong action on the climate, on nature, on the housing crisis, on the cost of living crisis.
With 11 seats, the Greens hold the balance of power in the Senate in their own right. New leader Larissa Waters says she is ambitious for the government as well as her own party.
We want the Labor Party to be bold, and we want to help them to fix the problems that people are facing. We will be firm but constructive, because this isn't about politicians, this is about the people that need our help.
The Greens have argued ever since election night that they had a good campaign, that their primary vote is little changed from 2022. But that, of course, hides the fact that they lost 3 out of 4 of their lower house seats, including that of their previous leader, Adam Bandt.
Well, the Greens tended to lose their heartland votes. They lost the demographics that dominate the inner cities. They lost better educated and better paid voters, dual income professional families, 2 jobs per family. These groups have been the basis of the strength of the vote for the Greens in the inner city areas for the last decade or more. They picked up a handful of votes in the outer suburbs to compensate, which is why the national votes remain steady.
So the Greens did better in a lot of seats they didn't win and worse in their traditional strongholds. But along with the independents, they made big gains in those seats even if they didn't win, which sets up some interesting battles next time.
Greens are in 2-party preferred now in more seats than ever before. So, folks, we'll be back.
But the Greens will clearly have to reconsider how they better align their policies and issues with those of voters, including on Gaza.
Clearly using the ALP as a punching bag for the war in Gaza and blaming them for what was going on when it was beyond their control didn't resonate well with people who live in the seat like I live in, which is Griffith. Because it was an insult to the intelligence of better educated voters. They did pick up some blue-collar votes in the outer suburbs, particularly from Islamic voters. They came straight back to the ALP in preferences. So the net result for the ALP was to gain votes. Look, they've got to get back to hugging trees, Laura. That's their raison d'etre. And if they ignore that, they do at their peril. That's the reality of it.
The biggest swings in the 2025 election were to and from the major parties, resulting in huge gains and losses of seats. There was a significant swing too to independent candidates, but it yielded no increase in seats at this stage of the count, and there was a possible loss of MP Zoe Daniel. The independents did, however, have a big impact on the success of the Greens.
In seats where there is a strong, credible independent who does quite well, they usually have a devastating impact on the Greens' primary vote.
With the dust starting to settle on the results and political parties starting to assess where they go next, analysts are now reading some of the underlying trends in the vote.
We've got the Teals now, which is basically a broad sort of centre-left grouping, more closely aligned demographically to the ALP than the Coalition. I think around about 65% of their primary votes go to the ALP, this election and the previous one when their preferences are distributed. And they're nourished in turn by the ALP preferences when they're allocated and by Green preferences.
Labor got about 35% of the primary vote, and they're on track for about 54 to 55% of the 2-party preferred vote. So that's about 1 in 5 Australians have voted for someone else and then preference Labor. And a majority of those voters are going to be Greens voters. So I think they do still play a crucial role in giving preferences to Labor.
Election analyst John Black thinks he also has an explanation for the really unexpected big losses of coalition seats in Queensland. He says the losses in the outer suburbs were linked to religion.
They tend to be semi-skilled and skilled blue-collar workers. They tend to have 1 income per family. They tend to be active churchgoers. So when you get their support for economic reasons or for faith-based reasons, as Scott Morrison did, you pick up these seats. And you pick them up not just in Queensland, but also in places like Tasmania.
Conversely, when voters lose faith in a political leader, you lose those seats. And there was a catastrophic loss of faith in Peter Dutton in the last week of the campaign.
What we saw was a complete collapse of the net satisfaction scores for Peter Dutton. And voters were just scrounging around looking for a reason to vote against him, including in his own seat. The collapse was really quite catastrophic, including in the last few days. In the end, when I saw the results that took place for the positive results for Labor amongst activist churchgoers, I was reminded of Kevin Rudd standing outside the local Anglican church every Sunday holding the Bible. The death of the Pope, tragic as it was, and the involvement of the Prime Minister in official ceremonies to mark that event resonated with these voters.
Voters may have noticed a proliferation of parties of the right on their House of Representatives ballots this year, from One Nation and the Trumpet of Patriots to Family First and the Libertarians. Collectively, they got just over 10% of the primary vote.
Probably if all those small right-wing parties were all unified behind one party, the way that they kind of are with the Greens on the left, I think you would see that party winning a lot of those seats, and you wouldn't see such a dominant centre-left result in the Senate.